Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Amazing Spider-Man 795. Okay, so we start off this issue with typical Parker luck, and this was pretty funny, all right? We got Mr. Babcock is the new superintendent landlord of his month-to-month apartment. Funny, I read that as mouth-to-mouth at first. I'm like, thanks for the mouth-to-mouth apartment. I'm like, what, is he getting his CPR training back in like, what's going on here? I had to read it again. I'm like, okay, I must be tired. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are hard for me because that's a lot of comics to read throughout the week. Anyway, so this knucklehead goes into this apartment. It's a little teeny tiny apartment. He's like, it will help me forget about my world, especially since I'm really tight on cash. All right, I'm going back to, paycheck to paycheck living. So he goes in there, and right away, right across the street, like, how do people even get to see this advertisement, this poster? It looks like they're in an alleyway, but there's a big sign on the other side that's right up in his face that says, your webware no good. Trade in your old phone for a good one at Alchemex, the Adroid system. Like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, it could have been any worse if it was in flashing neon lights. So that is great. Yeah, Parker Luck, man, take that. And it's funny what he says. He's like, low blow, Parker Luck, low blow. I loved that. That was so grand. Something I didn't like was Mockingbird's face in this. I'm not trying to, disrespect anybody, any artist, whatever. Just maybe they were trying to show that she was feeling a little bit miserable, but it actually looked like she just got out of some hard time in a women's penal colony breaking rocks with a pickaxe. Like, her face, she just looked beat up. Like she just got into a fight with a rhino and lost. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Yeah, she was beat the heck up. Anyway, so Aunt May calls her and says, hey, why don't you come on over and hang out? I'm going to get Peter to come over too. Well, Peter can't because he's busy trying to save the world from Loki. So Loki sends a raven. This is sends a crow, whatever. Absolutely hysterical because they're like the people at his job. They comes to their jobs like, okay, what happened there? Some carrier pigeon? No, that was a raven. So either he got summoned to King's Landing, or he got his application to Hogwarts was accepted. Okay, Hogwarts uses owls. Okay, they do not use ravens. This is a very Norse mythology thing, but I will accept the King's Landing. So the Hugin and Munin situation with these ravens. So he goes, and there's a little plan in place. And I dig this plan that Loki had. Now, mind you, it was very conspicuous how he knew that Parker was going to break this cask of, not Ancient Winters, the cask of containment. All right. It was very, very peculiar how he knew that was going to happen, but whatever. Zelma goes and explains later on, oh, wow, why'd you pull this out? Isn't this dangerous? It's like, oh, yeah, I'll move it back in a moment. Wow. So he totally set that up because, and I don't know if this is true in the comics or not, that apparently Loki owed him a favor, owed Parker a favor. If he did, if that's true, and somebody mentions that in the comics where that happened, then shame on the editors for not adding that in. No, I am merciless when it comes to the editors for the most part. I should always be told when something happened in the comic books. And for the most part, that's what I got here. But if that didn't happen, it's just a superfluous little, oh yeah, for storyline purposes, he owes him a favor. I'm totally cool with it. Good job. Good job by not actually having a job. Anyway, there was a lot of reminiscence in here, a whole lot. And I imagine that's mostly Slott and Gage reminiscing on in the thought bubbles and in the word speech and whatnot. But everything in this comic just seemed to flow so perfectly. I loved it. So Loki basically manipulates him into using a favor to his own liking as opposed to Parker's liking because he was afraid that, hey man, he might wind up wishing something that I'm not going to like doing, but I've got to do it anyway because I'm bound, That's one of the ways that magic works. This comic was so good that clearly one of these two, if not both of the two writers, have clearly been reading the current Doctor Strange run by Donny Cates. If they somehow haven't, I feel like maybe Donny Cates must have come over to their house and be like, hey guys, let me tell you what's going on. And they're like, oh, okay. So they added stuff in. It really feels like there was an extra guest writer in here. Like there were 3 writers in here because this was just so fluid. I'm talking like web fluid. No sticky whatsoever though. Fantastic. I love the way they did this. I'm giving this comic book an A-. Absolutely great. The very end of this, seeing the Carnage symbiote bond with Osborn, Norman Osborn, fantastic also. Look, that is clearly the main underlying story here, how he's going to, the Red Threat, right? That's what this is called. Red Threat Part 2 here. A lot of times, and sometimes I get criticized for like as if I'm being impatient. No, that's not the case. I just don't like not knowing what's going on in a story. A lot of times writers will write a story. Comic books are very guilty of this, okay? All throughout all the companies that I know of, all of them, they've done this, where it's like, okay, I've got a really great story for you, and they're hyping it up a lot. And how do they try and make us, build into a crescendo of awesomeness? They give us some storyline which is deeply shrouded in mystery, and it's like they're expecting that we're all gonna sit there and hold the comic book and go, ooh, how'd that happen? I can't wait till next month when we get to see what's going on. And like No Surrender is guilty of that. A lot of different, like for instance, holding off until issue 5, episode 5, whatever, of No Surrender to finally figure out who the controller was. This week we finally figured out who it was. We went through 5 issues. Fortunately, it's only a weekly comic. Can you imagine if we had to wait 5 months to figure out who the collector was? Not the collector, the controller, whoever this knucklehead is, the original Grandmaster. I'd have been so mad, so disappointed at such a lousy waste of, like building up the suspense and whatnot. It was only saved because this is a weekly comic book. But over here, Dan Slott, Christos Gage, they don't waste any time. They're just like, oh yeah, man, yeah. I know you want to see this stuff, so here you go. Here's a cool little story in the front. Here's this in the back. Enjoy. And I am enjoying it. They're not making us wait for a really long time and hoping that we're going to appreciate the story as much as they, as much as they appreciate it having written it. No, They just get right to the story, and I love that about this comic book. All right, guys, that's it. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.